Welcome to the With Winning in Mind podcast. I am Heather Sumlin, along with my co-host Troy Bassham. And today we dive into a couple of different topics. We talk a lot about how to handle a loss. What happens when you just don't reach your potential under pressure in competition? What do you do next? How do you handle that? And we get into a little bit about colleges and what it's like to maybe pursue the college level in sports. So if you're a high school junior or senior, you're going to want to watch this. If you're a college coach, you're going to watch this. And if you're anybody who's ever struggled with reaching your potential under pressure, give us a listen. If you're not a Patreon member, please join, because we are about now to go into a discussion for our Patreon members about the next step. So after that big loss, what do you do next? Tell me, Troy. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind?
Mm-hmm.
Quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah. Are you overthinking now?
I can't believe it. We're already 2 months into 2023.
Yes. And by the time this airs, maybe 3 months.
This year's going by fast. So much is going on. But one thing that's interesting is, there's a couple big events in the beginning of the year in sport.
Mm-hmm.
Not just a particular sport. Obviously you have the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
But in other sports, there are big events. I've got a high school wrestler that they just had state championships not too long ago.
Oh, that's fun.
I'm like, how cool is that? And of course, archery. They have the archery festival, which is a big indoor.
And we missed it this year.
Yeah, we didn't go this year. Unfortunately, we didn't go.
But we'll go next year.
We'll be there next year.
Yeah.
But that's their big event. And that's early in the season.
That's a lot of fun, by the way. That's a lot of fun.
And
I don't shoot in it. I just watch. And it's still a lot of fun.
And then we have the Masters coming up in April.
Okay.
And then you have March Madness. I think we get so caught up in summer and summer events. I think I figured out why is because we grew up in a household where our dad was, competing in a summer Olympic event. Rifle shooting is in the Summer Olympics. So everything was geared towards the summer. And then we didn't really focus on the fact that, what happens in the beginning of the year? But then you wind up realizing that there's a lot of people that have big events early in the year, not just spring leading into summer. Fall, everyone kind of figures out that there's really not much going on. But there are stuff going on. Like if you compete with high school and collegiate, competitions, you have big events going on year round. And so anyway, I had a client recently, and this happens every year, by the way. And so I was wondering, I'm sure it happens to your clientele, and I thought it'd be a good topic to talk about here on the podcast is, how do you help someone handle huge defeat? Like to them, this is a major loss, and it's almost the point to where they don't want to do the sport anymore.
What do you do?
It's going to throw it back on me.
Absolutely. I'm throwing it back on you. Well, because you've had time to think about it. This was on your mind. So I want your...
I look at it in two different directions.
Okay.
One direction I obviously look at is the fact that you have to go with the win and learn. Our father has told us that, since the 80s, he would tell us you're either winning or you're learning. Now it's a big movement. There's a lot of top, people who help people be successful that talk about you either win or you learn, which spot on. And so I come from that direction. I'm like, look, you can't just win all the time. Right. There has to be learning opportunities.
It wouldn't even be fun if you won all the time.
Yes. The difference is that when you lose, sometimes the loss can be more devastating than others.
This is true.
For example, you're doing really good. You're moving up. You're a favorite to win. You could see the light. You're like going to it. It's getting closer and closer. Like, okay, this is my chance to win. And then not only do you not win, you don't even come close to where you wanted to be, maybe top 3, top 5, and you finish like 12th. And now you're thinking, did I have the wrong goal? This is ridiculous. Why did I do this? And so there's that initial, this is painful. I don't want to deal with this. I'm out of here kind of mode. And I want to go into, wait a minute. There's two ways to look at it. One is winning. Did you win or not? And the other one is, did you learn anything in the process? And when you fail, that is the best opportunity, to learn. Because when you win, how much do you learn? You confirm a lot. I don't know if you learn a lot, but when you don't win.
I like that. You confirm a lot, but you may not learn a lot.
Correct. But when you lose.
You're quotable today.
I'm quotable. So when you lose, there's an opportunity to learn a lot, but maybe not confirm a lot. And so that's the first direction I go. The second one I go the direction of this is the best thing that could ever happen to you. And that usually gets the eyeball, what? The look like their eyes go, and they go, that kind of look.
Right. Like, I don't believe you.
Yeah, they're like, how is this the
How?
best thing to happen to you? So I'll give you a good example. Take a junior in high school that's in a sport. They want to use the sport to go compete in college, which in this country, one of the greatest things about this country is we have athletics at university. Not every country does.
Really?
Yeah. And you can get a scholarship to compete in your sport to offset the cost, which everyone knows the cost of education is getting higher and higher. So wait a minute. If I compete really well, I do really well, I improve my ranking, I can improve the better scholarship. So these tournaments now become even more and more important every year. So you think about competition's getting better, cost is getting higher, the more importance of I need a scholarship to offset the cost, or maybe I need to do well so I can get into the college I want because the college I want to go to is so academically challenging that just my grades alone doesn't guarantee me to get in. But if I was good in this sport, my grades and being ranked would get me into that school. I deal with a lot of those high school athletes.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, when you don't do well in a big event like a state championship, you feel like the world is crumbling on you. And I sat there and I look at one particular individual. This just recently happened. They're junior in high school. So junior and senior are very big in their sport. But it's not like golf where junior is a bigger year, because if you're not on the radar, it's hard to get on the radar when you're a senior.
Okay.
Because,
so if you're a golfer, you've got to make it happen.
you want to be making it happen sophomore year.
Okay.
You want to be on the radar at least freshman year, people looking at you your sophomore year, people,
So you better start
talking
golfing
to
when
people
you're
your
young.
junior year and you're signed your senior year. You don't want to wait your senior year. Where rifle shooting is different. Rifle shooting, people wait to the senior year and then go after people.
Okay, why is that?
I think, one, there's a lot more people competing in one sport than the other.
Okay,
And
so there's more competition.
A lot more competition. There's a lot more competitions in golf than there are in rifle shooting.
Okay.
So in rifle shooting, the big events to evaluate your athlete is Junior Olympics, national championships, and in air gun, you have the Winter Air Gun, which is in the wintertime, obviously called Winter Air Gun for a reason. It's held in December.
I was wondering.
So you're limited. You have just a few events, and you can actually go and watch these individuals compete. Golf, you have every weekend there's a tournament.
Okay.
And there's one of importance that you go back. So they're looking at rankings. They're going to different tournaments, and they've got a lot of people they're trying to look at because there's over 100 schools. There are probably 200 something schools, if not more, Division I, that are given scholarships for golf.
Oh, that's
when there's
true.
only about 40 in rifle.
Okay.
Okay, so you have the different demographics from one sport to the other. So when you look at this particular athlete, just because they didn't do well their junior year like they want, if they win their senior year, that will boost them into getting into university. Because you're looking at state is a very high degree. Like in wrestling, what are you going to compare it to? In high school, golf doesn't mean much. If you win state in high school golf, but you don't compete in the AJGA events and you're nationally ranked in those independent junior events, then good luck trying to get noticed by the top universities.
So depending on the sport determines whether or not a state like high school championship is going to matter.
Yes.
For your college recruitment.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it makes it difficult for us that work in different sports, because if you pigeonhole yourself in one, then you're going to say, oh man, you don't have much time. Well, in this particular example, I'm like, wait a minute, this is the best thing that's ever happened to you. Now, of course, they don't like that comment, but I'm looking at you got one extra year. So I look at it and say, okay, we have 3 events, big events this year. You've had a week. I mean, 1 week after the other. Okay. 3 weeks straight competition leading up to this big event. It didn't go the way you want. Now you've got about a month before you get this nationals. Nationals isn't as important as state to this individual. And to them, it's like, what's the point? Well, my point is that have you learned a lot in these last 3 weeks that now you could redo your plan leading up to nationals that would change how you go into that tournament? And they go, yeah. I'm like, so let's say you do that and you go into that tournament and you do well. How does it not set you up for next year, your senior year?
Not only that, doesn't that show potentially a college coach that you're able to learn from a loss, apply and correct, and implement the correction in a major tournament?
Yeah, I'm all about a win-win scenario. If you want everything and then you lose, that's not looking good to the coach. But let's say you didn't do well, but then also you bounce back and you show progress. And then the next year you're looking even better. Now they're not looking at who am I looking at right now? They're looking at who am I potentially getting when they come to my school.
Well, and I think I would just imagine that a college coach has to look for potential. Because if you're coming in as a freshman, they're not going to expect you to have arrived and be the best you're going to be. Won't they be looking at how can I assist you in getting to where you're capable of going? So they're looking for the raw talent. They're looking for the current technical skill, but they're looking for the character, I would imagine.
Well, every coach in my experience, college coaches, are looking for the same person. They want the individual that come in and just win off the bat, and I don't have to do anything. The problem is they're not abundant.
They're rare, right?
They're not abundant, okay? So then you have to look at, okay, what's the other thing we're going to do? What if I bring the next tier down and I get enough of those individuals that sooner or later a couple of those guys are going to shine? You put a good group of people together, they make each other good. Okay, that's why
they build each other.
That's why you have the Olympic Training Center. That's why you have the Army has the Army Marksmanship Unit. You know, we put these top individuals together. They're going to shine. One, if I don't train hard and I can't beat you, that means I can't win the nationals or the international competitions. So there's motivation for me to go train. Two, is an opportunity to bond and actually learn. Look, what do you do that you think is helpful for you getting better? Oh, I do this. Really, I never thought about that. What do you do? Oh,
They
I do
learn
this.
from each other.
Correct.
Right.
So there's an opportunity to have that codependent learning opportunity that you have, which in college, I think you have that.
I think it's
and
huge.
so if I'm a college coach, I can't get the ideal number one candidate. Ideal two candidate is the one that I can come surrounded with good people, like-minded, and maybe they can help each other out, which basically relieves stress from me. So, and I think there's two types of college coaches out there. It's just my opinion, by the way, so I don't want anyone to get mad at me, but this is my opinion.
Get mad. Send your complaints to me. I'll share.
Yeah, send them to Heather.
Just kidding. Don't get mad.
But my way of looking at it is you got coaches that are good recruiters.
Okay.
Like there's one coach that comes to mind that in their sport of rifle shooting, this individual is a excellent recruiter. They have a stick that's hard to argue. You know, a stick is like
your shtick.
Yeah, it's like, hey, why should you come here? Let me tell you why you should come here. Yeah, I call it the stick. But they're going to pitch this idea that, hey, you can come to my university and get X. And very few, if any other universities can say the same thing. And I'm like, that's brilliant. That's a sign of someone who's a really good recruiter. Because if you're not a good recruiter, you're not going to get the top talent, right?
Well, they have to like the school too, right? Because they're there to go to the classes.
But
and
that's going to meet the shtick, you know.
Okay, so they're really good at pitching the university.
You have a daughter. You have a daughter that's a senior in high school. Let's
Right.
use her as an example. She's about to go to college. Okay, if you had a preference, you could send her to a private university like a TCU, SMU that's in our neighborhood, or you could send her to a state university like a UNT or a UTA. Which would you prefer her to go to? Just using as an example.
If I can afford either?
Yeah, assume you can afford
I
it.
don't know. I might prefer the private school.
Or what if the private school?
It depends.
What if the private school costs you the same as the state school?
Yeah, then I'd probably pick the
private one, right?
Well,
no, I know there's underlying factors, but
yeah.
I'm just saying on the surface, you automatically are going in the direction that I think most parents look, is that in general, we tend to think that the private school is better than the state school.
Well, the schools that you mentioned, I happen to have clients that attended the schools that you mentioned, the private schools, and loved them and had excellent experiences. And the other schools, I don't have as many.
Well, I'm just saying on
you
the
know
surface,
what I mean? So I'm also looking at it from like a reputation standpoint of what I've heard.
I'm just looking from from a surface area.
Right.
UNT has 45,000 students. It's not a chump school.
And my son went to UNT, so obviously I don't have any problem with UNT.
Yeah, UNT is good. You don't have 45,000 students if you're not good at educating students, okay? You might have 45 students, but you don't have 45,000 students if you do that.
Okay.
If you look at TCU, you look at what they've done over the recent years, you look at other private schools like Notre Dame, Stanford, Rice University, that kind of stuff. They have a little bit higher reputation than most state schools just on the surface of it. Now, you go on because of that, and I think that's a norm across the board. Would you agree that most people would prefer a private over a public state university if the cost was the same? Probably. Okay, so if you're a coach at a private university and most of your schools you compete against in your sport, they're all state universities. What would you do? Hey, you could come here for the same cost as go over there, but get a private education at a state university cost.
And that would be your pitch.
That would be your pitch.
Right.
This individual uses that very well. And of course, what happens? They get some of the best individuals to come. Now, here's what's brilliant about it. This coach doesn't have to give these individuals full rides.
He just has to get it down to what the state school.
Yeah, I can give. Let's say I'm only allowed to give, 3 scholarships, but I need 5 people to make a team. Okay, well, if I give 3 full rides and I got 2 people that don't have scholarship money, unless mom and dad can afford to send them and pay for it, what do? I got an idea. Come here. This is a private university. I give you 50% scholarship. That reduces to where it's a state level cost. To you, but you get this education. Now I got 6 people I can recruit. Brilliant.
Smart.
And they're competitive every single year because the individual's a great recruiter. Now, you have some people that I don't have that. Like there's other schools, especially in rifle, because I'm from the rifle.
Said they're either a good recruiter or they're a good
coach. When I look at a good coach, I look at a good coach as being someone that can develop. You could have, definitely you could have both. But I think people lean one or the other. I think people lean to be a better recruiter or they lean to be a better coach. They're 2 different skill sets. When I look at my alma mater, University of Texas at El Paso, you're not going to attract the best people to want to go there because how many people really want to go to El Paso versus how many people want to go to Fort Worth, Texas? A lot more people want to go to Fort Worth, Texas because it's a Dallas area,
There's more to do,
Not
I
many
would
people
imagine.
want to go to El Paso, that's in the desert, West Texas. People are like, well, this is crazy. So are you going to be able to, what stick are you going to use to recruit? You're probably going to have someone that's going to be able to create shooters. In other words, they're going to have to make them better. The reality is that if you're a parent and you want to send your kid to college and college is going to make them better, that is more of a myth than a reality. Most coaches don't make the athletes better. Most coaches put the athletes in an environment that makes the athletes better.
So what does that mean exactly? What kind of an environment is that? Or what would, so now that we've gone into a whole nother topic, which I think is really cool. So if your advice to college coaches on how to create this environment, what is it?
Well, I'm not telling you, and this is not groundbreaking to these kind of coaches, use what you have to your advantage, leverage it. So if I was going to a school that most people don't want to go to, I want to create a reputation of that school that no other university can share. Okay. For example, if I'm got a sport and Stanford, right, is very competitive in that sport, how am I going to compete on an academic level with Stanford and an athletic level if they're already good? I'm not. So instead of trying to go head to head, I'm going to create a different reputation to where, hey, this is where we come. Like I know one university in one sport, their reputation among the people in the sport is this is where good high school athletes go to die.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's definitely not football. But at Ohio State, they got a sport that the reputation within the community of that sport is, hey, this is where good high school competitors go to die. Meaning they don't get better when they go there. Oh. They get worse or they get stagnant. Well, that's what happened at my alma mater. My alma mater was, they were like, hey, look, people come here, they don't get better. Okay, you do not want that.
No.
In rifle shooting you do not want that reputation, because then it's going to be very hard to recruit. We'll want to have a reputation where if you have somewhere that can create all Americans, say, hey, this is where you come to get better. And what if you actually had a track record of proving that you make people better? You help people go to the next level and do that. Then you'd be good to go. So segueing back to where we opened up with devastation and the learning opportunity, the reason why I told this junior in high school, this is the best thing that ever happened to you, is because if this happened in college, it's a little late. By happening now and overcoming this now and have an opportunity to do better your senior year, are you going to have adversity in college? Yes, you are. But now you know how to overcome it because you had this learning experience in high school. And I think a lot of people think, shifting back over to our other conversation, is if I send my kid to college, they'll take care of everything. And they don't. Most of it's because they're limited. A lot of universities just limited what they can do. So there are some universities that we work with where they hire us to go help their athletes in the mental game. They don't have a full-time person on salary helping their athletes. When there are other universities that might offer that. Right. So there's some limitations to that. Other limitations is, what do you do when your coach that is really good moves to a better situation or retires? Now what do you got to, So there's reasons why things are challenging. But in parents mode, they think if I send my kid to university, the university will take care of them. And in many cases, they don't. Not the way that you think they're going to. That brings me back to, what do you think most parents would want? Private school or public school if the cost was the same? Most are going to say private because they have this idea in their mind, which I don't think necessarily is true, that it's better than the other.
Well, because it's more expensive, so you would expect it's going to be better.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think, and there's more investment into the school, I would think.
So now segue back to the very beginning of this conversation, which is you have athletes that don't win, they're devastated. They're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not. In other words, they don't see their goals happening now. I'm derailed. I'm off out in the pasture now. I'm not even on the road anymore to my goal. What do I do? What do I do now? I think I might give up. Certainly you've had that happen in your clientele. I mean, imagine the pageantry world. If you do not win, I mean, you're limited to an age group. So every year gets a little more challenging. So how do you handle it with those individuals?
Well, one of the things that's interesting in pageantry is that the win changes your life depending on the competition. So if you win Miss Texas, for example, in the American system, or even in the USA system,
so how different is if I win Miss Texas versus I'm second runner up?
Miss Texas America, second runner up, will win some money. So get some scholarships. So that can be really, really good.
Are the scholarships decent, or are they limited to certain universities?
Gosh, I would have to look at his cash scholarship. Like you'll win a cash scholarship that you can use anywhere, which is nice. The winner wins significantly more money. The winner
enough
also
to do what? Pay for their education.
Yeah, it depends on where you go. Like, are you choosing that private school? There's also some in-kind scholarships. So I know that in the past, I don't know if this is a true now, but I know that in the past, if you won like Miss Texas Outstanding Teen and went to Miss America's Outstanding Teen, you got a full tuition scholarship to Alabama just for being a state title holder, which is kind of nice. I mean, that's a pretty good deal, and it's a good school. You have to get into the school, obviously, but if you get in, you get that full tuition scholarship.
Pretty smart for the university to do that.
Absolutely.
Could you imagine having Miss Texas at your university or Miss America at your university?
And Miss Texas Outstanding Teen from 2 years ago is going to school there because of that. So there's several that have gone.
They're using that for marketing, I bet.
Probably, and it's super wise. So then you also have, so basically your winner will win significantly more money. The prize package is good. But also your winner then is kind of employed by the organization, so then has a pretty much full-time job. So she'll travel the entire state. She'll do presentations across the state. She'll meet people. She'll network. It changes her life. Then if she goes to Miss America,
totally different than the second runner-up, which is basically third place.
Absolutely. So the life change, like your life as you know it, is on hold. and you're serving your state for a solid year. It's not like just winning a state competition in any other sport.
Yeah, but
because it comes with a job.
Here's a challenging part. You work with someone who's favored to win, Miss Texas, for example.
Oh, yeah.
They go to Miss Texas, and they finished 6th.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can they go back next year and try to get first?
If it depends on if they can still uphold the eligibility requirement. So it depends on age.
Age, they're good.
Then yes, they can come back. As long as they just have to win a local competition and come back.
Okay. So there's hope for them to improve and go with it. Okay. But let's say they win Miss Texas.
Yes.
Now they get to go compete at Miss America?
They go to Miss America.
And they don't win. They finish 10th. They get to go back?
Nope. You're done.
One and done.
One and done. Which makes the national competition so exciting to me. Everybody's at the same level. No one's ever been there.
Oh.
Which to me, it levels the playing field. Everybody starts at the same spot. You haven't been at this competition before, so you don't have an advantage.
So it's life-changing 10 times more than the state champion when they win Miss America, because it opens up even more networking opportunities and more possibilities that they can.
Absolutely. And it is a full-time job. You actually move. So the current Miss America is living in Florida.
So how do you handle someone who's worked really hard? Because I met some of the girls you've worked with over the years that were favored to win, that looked really good, didn't do well, and they don't take it very well. It gets emotional.
Well, of course.
They can be very, because it's a lot of work. I don't think a lot of people realize how. Heather considers pageantry a sport. Let's just give it to her. Say it's a sport, even though we don't agree that it's a sport. I think it's not a sport unless you sweat.
There's no sweat.
Sweating. No, there's no sweating.
They work out, like especially when
not competition. Not competition. They're not
in advance.
No, they're not sweating. They're in an air conditioning building. They've got it made.
One of my
it's
former
really
clients
cool.
needs to take Troy to one of their workouts, and let's just
No,
put
I'm
him
not
to the
talking
test.
about,
Like that would be amazing.
In competition. If you're in competition, it's like chess is not a sport. Chess is a game.
Okay.
There's no sweating in that competition. Okay. So anyway, it's
Rifle
a legitimate
shooting
competition.
doesn't look like you would
You sweat
break a sweat.
lot. Oh yeah, you sweat a lot.
I think there's a lot of girls who sweat during their talent competition.
You're also holding up a 13-pound rifle for 2.5 hours trying to shoot a little bit thing.
If a girl is doing a pretty intense cardio-driven routine, they will be sweating.
They could. I'm just
saying
that some people don't say it's a sport, and I'm saying we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
So sweating is a requirement for it to be a sport, according to Troy.
That's just my.
All right, well, I'm glad to know that what it means to be a sport for you. Okay.
Prove me wrong.
So here's the deal.
I don't know. Maybe it's a different topic. What's the difference between a game and a sport? But anyway, get back to all seriousness. We consider pageantry a sport,
right?
Which we do, by the way. So I can always feel the hate emails coming my way. So we could consider sport because these individuals, like you said, they're working out. They got several different things that they have to have within the craft. Yeah. They got to be good at interviewing. They got to be good communicators. They got to make sure that they can model certain things well. Like if I can't go out there and look good in an evening gown and I can't walk well, then I'm not gonna be able to win the competition. So there's different competitions within the big whole grand scheme of things, and people are not just going out there for a weekend saying, hey, I'm going to go try this out, spend a couple hours a week, and 3 months later enter an event and expect to win. Probably not going to happen that way.
It's rare. Yeah.
Once they get to the state level, that's not happening. I mean, maybe a local, we go to, there's only 5 girls competing and it's out in the middle of nowhere. Outside of that, most of the people you work with, there's some stiff competition just to get through the local, to get into the state pageant. Okay, they don't make it, but you look at them, you're like, okay, they did X, Y, Z. This is what was needed. It didn't work. How do you handle that? Well,
the first thing is to realize that it's a subjective graded competition, and so that is so that it's. Well, you could argue that figure skating is subjective. You could argue that gymnastics, to an extent, could be subjective.
I favor non-subjective sports. You excel in that area.
Well, I think what I like about pageantry as a whole is what it does to the person through the preparation. So you're able to really transform yourself in a wide variety of different areas in your life that really propel you forward in your future careers and endeavors. So your goal shouldn't be, you shouldn't go into it thinking the best I'm ever going to be is a state title holder. The best title I'm ever going to have is a state title. Like when we interviewed Kelly Sabrocki. So when Kelly competed for Miss California, she was devastated when she didn't win. First runner-up, she did everything she possibly could do. There wasn't anything she should change about that competition. And she'd aged out. There was no opportunity for her to ever do it again. So she was devastated. But there wasn't anything to be upset about.
So how do you evaluate that if you're in that situation?
So what you have to do is you have to look back and say, what have I learned about myself that's going to propel me forward towards what's next? And what is next? You have to set a goal before you get there.
So you look at very similar to if they had another year. You look at it very similar. You're not changing that. You're looking at it as a learning opportunity to prepare me to the future. The difference is instead of another opportunity, it's a different opportunity.
It's a new opportunity. Absolutely. It may not be on a stage. It may not be in heels and an evening gown, but it's going to be using the skills that you learned. How did you grow through this and what has it given you? And in her case, it gave her a voice. It gave her the ability to have these super strong communication skills that I don't know if she would have had otherwise. So she started a podcast. And she has a nice following on social media where she's able to encourage women to go and get involved in whatever way that they want to and not limit themselves. Like that's her goal and her initiative and her branding. Well, she might not have had the confidence to do that had she not participated. So it's not a loss.
Yeah, so you're looking at the smaller victories that might be hidden, the big learning opportunities that can allow you to grow, and then propel you to the next step. And if you want to learn more about this next step, we're going to dive a little bit deeper in how do you do this. First, what you have to do is you have to look at, is it a winning opportunity to confirm that everything's going well so I continue that track, or is it a learning opportunity where I can grow and look at that. And we're going to take a look to our Patreon members and say, hey, this is how we do it. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you the next time.